Hey everyone, welcome back for another deep dive. And today we're looking into something pretty wild, potentially revolutionary even.
If it's true.
Yeah, exactly. That's what we're here to figure out.
Right.
We're talking about the claims of Maxwell Chikambutso. He's a Zimbabwean inventor. And get this, he says he's figured out free energy.
Free energy, yeah.
Yeah, like pulling it out of thin air. Sounds a little like science fiction, right?
Definitely. But
But we're going to dig in.
we got to see.
Exactly. So we've got a whole bunch of stuff to look at. We got news articles, documentaries, eyewitness accounts, a real mix.
Sounds like a good one.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting for sure. So who is this Chikambutso guy? Well, he dropped out of high school, taught himself how to invent things, and now he's saying he can take radio waves, the ones that are just like everywhere around us.
Right.
And he says he can turn them into usable power, like the stuff that runs our houses.
Wow.
And it's not all just talk. He's actually built prototypes, an electric car, a generator, even a helicopter.
All running on this so-called free energy.
Supposedly, yeah. Pretty mind-blowing, right?
Yeah, it is. What's really got me curious, though, is that he says the heart of all these inventions is this device he calls the Bichronic energy device.
Okay, a Bichronic energy device. You're going to have to break that down for me. What is that exactly?
He says it takes those radio frequencies all around us, and it turns them into electricity.
Hold up, ambient radio frequencies. For those of us who didn't ace physics, what does that even mean?
Haha, good point. Okay, so think about a really loud rock concert. The music is thumping. You can feel the vibrations in your chest.
Yeah.
Those are sound waves, and they carry energy.
Okay.
Radio waves are kind of similar, but they're part of this thing called the electromagnetic spectrum, which we can't see. They're all over the place, carrying information for radios, TVs, Wi-Fi, you name it.
Right, so these waves are everywhere, but can they actually power, like, real stuff? My phone doesn't charge itself just by being next to the router.
Yeah, that's the big question. See, radio waves do have energy, but it's spread out, super weak.
Uh-huh.
Like trying to fill a pool one drop at a time, you'd need a zillion drops, and gotta be super precise to make a dent.
So is Chikambutso saying he's figured out how to do that? Like, round up all these weak radio waves and make them into a power source? Just like that.
Pretty much, yeah. But that's where the science gets, well, kind of fuzzy. He uses this word micronic, which, as far as I know, doesn't have a real scientific meaning. And he's even said he's refining the second law of thermodynamics, one of the fundamental laws of physics about energy.
Whoa, whoa, whoa. Refining a fundamental law of physics? Isn't that kind of like, I don't know, saying you can change how gravity works?
You're not wrong. It's a bold claim. The second law of thermodynamics basically says energy goes from high concentration to low concentration,
Okay.
like heat moving from a hot thing to a cold one. But Chikambutso is saying he can reverse that, concentrate energy where it's usually spread thin.
I'm no scientist, but that sounds like a pretty big deal, right?
It would be huge, but it also raises a ton of red flags for the scientific community.
Yeah, I bet.
Scientists need to rely on the laws of physics and really rigorous testing, and when someone comes along and says, hey, I'm rewriting the rule book,
They're going to need some proof.
a lot of proof. So what kind of proof does Chikambutso offer? Does he let other scientists see how his device works?
Well, that's where it gets kind of frustrating.
Yeah.
He's showing off his inventions and lets people do some basic tests, but he's really hesitant to fully reveal what's going on inside the device. I can see why scientists would be skeptical. It's like saying, hey, I invented a teleportation device, but I'm not going to show you how it works.
It's a good analogy. And that makes it tough to know what's real and what could be, well, trickery or just wishful thinking.
So we have this inventor with technology that could change the world, but he's keeping secrets. And scientists are like, hold on, we need more than just a peek.
Exactly. And it's not just about the technology. It raises questions about how science works, what happens when someone comes up with something totally new, the whole relationship between inventors and institutions.
It's a big, messy, fascinating picture.
Yeah, it is.
So to figure this out, we need to look at the evidence we do have, right?
Absolutely. And one of the most intriguing pieces comes from the documentary Thrive 2, What It Takes. They have this whole segment about a welding machine test.
Ah, yeah, I've heard about this. This is where things get really interesting. So from what I understand, Chikambutso used his device to power a welding machine, and something really strange happened with the batteries.
Yeah, instead of draining like you'd expect, they actually showed an increase in charge.
Wait, the batteries gained power while they were powering a welding machine? That's like filling up your gas tank while you're driving.
It's definitely a head-scratcher. Even people who are skeptical about Chikambutso's bigger claims, this demonstration, which is on film, it's hard to just dismiss.
Okay, I'm officially hooked. This is definitely one of those too good to be true moments, right?
It is.
But we're not just going to take it at face value, right?
Oh, no, no, no.
We're going to break down this welding machine test, see if it holds up.
Look at all the possibilities.
Yeah. So coming up next, we're going to dig into this test, see if there are any flaws, look at alternative explanation, and really get into why this piece of evidence is causing such a stir.
Should be good.
Stay with us. This deep dive is about to get even more interesting. Okay, so we've got this welding machine test, and it just seems to break the laws of physics.
Yeah,
Batteries getting more charge while powering a welding machine. It's like some kind of magic trick, you know?
it really pushes what we think we know about energy.
Yeah.
But before we get too carried away, let's really look at this test.
Okay, yeah, good point. What do we actually know about how it was done?
Well, in the documentary footage, you see Chikambutso's team using his device, hooked up to a regular welding machine. They say the batteries, the ones connected to his device, they didn't drain like you'd think.
Right.
In fact, they actually showed more charge after the welding was finished.
Okay, but was this like a real scientific experiment? Did they have other scientists watching, making sure everything was measured right?
That's where things get a little, well, unclear. The documentary uses this as proof of Chikambutso's claims, but it doesn't seem like it was a super rigorous, scientifically controlled test.
So it's more like a demonstration than a real experiment.
Yeah, and demonstrations can be cool, but they don't necessarily prove anything scientifically. There's always a chance there's something else going on, something hidden.
Right, so let's put on our skeptical hats for a minute. What are some ways this welding machine test could be, well, misleading?
One possibility is a hidden power source, like another battery pack tucked away somewhere we can't see it.
Oh, so it's like one of those magic shows where they make something disappear, but it's really just hidden compartments and tricks.
Exactly. Even really smart scientists can be tricked by a good illusion, so we got to be careful.
Okay, hidden batteries, got it. What else could be going on?
Maybe the measurements themselves were off. Like, what if the tool they were using to measure the battery charge wasn't working right? Or maybe they made a mistake reading the numbers. It happens.
Yeah, true. Even one tiny mistake can mess up a whole experiment.
Exactly. Science is all about being super precise, so any little error can throw things off.
So we've got hidden batteries, measurement errors. Anything else we should think about?
There's also a chance that Chikambutso's device is interacting with the welding machine, or even just the stuff around it, in a way we don't understand yet.
Like some kind of weird electromagnetic field or energy transfer that makes it look like free energy, but it's really something else.
It's possible. Electromagnetic fields can do some pretty strange stuff. It's not always straightforward.
So it's not that Chikambutso's necessarily trying to trick anyone. Maybe he just doesn't fully get how his device works or what it's doing to the things around it.
That's a good point. Sometimes big scientific discoveries happen by accident, by noticing something unexpected.
Oh, like that time Alexander Fleming discovered penicillin because of mold in his lab?
Exactly. Not every big invention comes from a perfectly planned experiment. Sometimes it's about just paying attention and being open to new things.
Okay, so we've got a bunch of possibilities here, from trickery to honest mistakes to genuine scientific mystery. So where does that leave us? Do we know what's really going on with this welding machine test?
I think the honest answer is not yet. The welding machine test is definitely interesting, but it's just one piece of the puzzle.
Right, so we need more evidence, more testing, and ideally, Chikambutso would be more open about his technology so we can really figure this out.
Yeah, for sure. Which brings up the question, why is he so secretive? He says he's afraid someone will steal his ideas or shut him down, and we know the Zimbabwean government has tried to imprison him in the past. Are those concerns real, or is it something else?
It's hard to say for sure, but intellectual property theft and suppression of new technologies are real problems, especially for inventors in developing countries.
Yeah.
And history's full of inventors who were ridiculed or even punished for their ideas. Think about Galileo.
Oh, good example.
He got in huge trouble with the church for saying the earth goes around the sun.
Right. Because his ideas challenged the way people saw the world back then.
And imagine if Chikambutso's technology does work, it would turn the whole energy industry upside down.
Yeah, it would change everything. It's a multi-trillion-dollar industry.
Exactly. So it's not hard to imagine that some powerful people would want to keep this tech quiet, maybe even make it disappear.
It's true. Big changes often face pushback from the people who benefit from the way things are now.
But then, if Chikambutso really wants to help people and share this amazing tech with the world, wouldn't he be more open about it?
It's a tough situation. He's got to protect his work, but he also needs people to trust him and believe in what he's doing.
It's a real catch-22. The more secrets he keeps, the more skeptical people become. But the more open he is, the more vulnerable he is to being taken advantage of.
That's exactly it. And there's no easy solution. It's complex. But one thing's for sure, we need to find a way to move past this suspicion and secrecy if we're going to figure out if Chikambutso's technology is the real deal.
So how do we do that? How do we bridge the gap between people who think he's a genius and those who think he's a fake?
Well, maybe we need a neutral party, a respected scientific organization that knows about energy research and how to protect inventions.
So like a trusted referee who can look at Chikambutso's tech, see if it really works, but also help him protect his ideas.
Exactly. That way, everyone could feel more confident about the results. Plus, it would open up a conversation between Chikambutso, the scientific world, and the public.
Yeah, a place where everyone can share their findings, question each other, and be open to new ideas while still being skeptical and careful.
That's the key, healthy skepticism and open-mindedness.
That's what we're all about here on the Deep Dive. We're not here to judge, we're here to explore, to ask questions, and to help our listeners understand this complicated world we live in.
That's a good way to put it. And when it comes to Maxwell Chikambutso, there's a lot to explore. We're dealing with science, innovation, and the future of energy, all rolled into one.
So next up, we're going to take a look at what happens if Chikambutso's claims are true. How would this tech change the world? What would be the good stuff, the bad stuff, the ethical stuff? We're also going to hear from people who have actually met Chikambutso, seen his inventions in person, and made up their own minds.
Sounds good.
Stay tuned because the next part of our deep dive is where things get really interesting. Okay, so we've talked about the claims, looked at the evidence, and even tried to understand where Chikambutso's coming from. But now let's think big picture for a sec. What if this free energy isn't just a fantasy? What if this tech actually works? What happens then?
Things get really interesting then. I mean, if Chikambutso's tech is the real deal and we can actually use it on a large scale, we're talking about a total game changer for how we use energy.
You're saying it could change everything.
It really could.
Wow. Okay, so help me imagine this. What would a free energy world even look like?
Well, first off, imagine never having to plug in your phone again or charge your electric car. And think about what that would mean for places that don't have reliable electricity right now. Remember, Chikambutso talks about wanting to bring energy to rural communities, especially in Africa.
Yeah, that's a huge deal. Giving people access to cheap, clean energy would be life-changing for so many people. No more expensive, dirty fossil fuels.
Right.
No more energy poverty. It sounds almost too good to be true.
Yeah, it could solve some of the biggest problems we face today. But we got to think about the downsides, too.
Okay, yeah, true. There's always another side to the coin. What could go wrong with this free energy future?
One thing that worries me is what it would do to the economy. The energy industry is massive. We're talking trillions of dollars. If everyone suddenly switched to Chikambutso's tech, well,
It would shake things up for sure.
big time. A lot of powerful businesses would lose a lot of money. And that kind of change, it can cause instability, maybe even conflict. We've seen that happen before when new tech comes along and disrupts things.
Yeah, like when cars replaced horses, it was a good thing overall, but a lot of people lost their jobs and things got messy for a while.
Exactly, good example. And this shift to free energy, it would be even bigger than that. It would affect everyone, everywhere.
Makes sense. Another thing I wonder about is, well, people. We aren't always great at managing resources, even when they're limited. What if we had unlimited energy? Would we just waste it even more?
That's a great question. And honestly, it's a big risk. We've seen how badly we can mess up the environment when we take resources for granted.
It's kind of like that saying, with great power comes great responsibility. Free energy could be amazing, but it could also be dangerous if we don't handle it right.
Definitely. We need to rethink how we see energy. It wouldn't be this scarce thing anymore. It would be something we have to manage carefully, like a shared resource for everyone.
So it's not just about the tech itself, it's about how we as a society learn to use it responsibly.
Exactly. And those are conversations that we need to start having now before this stuff becomes a reality.
Good point. Now, you know how Chikambutso says he wants to give this tech away for free, share it with the world, but he's also so afraid of people stealing his ideas that he won't explain how it works? It seems kind of contradictory to me.
Yeah, it's a tricky situation for inventors. You want to make a difference, but you also need to protect your work.
It's like being generous versus protecting yourself.
Right. And there's no easy answer. It depends on the inventor, the invention, and the risks involved.
So for Chikambutso, it sounds like he's chosen to be really careful, give little hints here and there, but keep most of it secret.
And that's made people curious, but also frustrated. It's kept the mystery alive, but it's also made it hard for scientists to really believe him.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, what's the big takeaway for our listeners? What should they remember about Chikambutso and his free energy claims?
The main thing I'd say is whether or not this tech really works, Chikambutso's story reminds us that there's still so much out there that we don't know. The world is full of crazy possibilities, both good and bad.
It also shows that science and invention are always changing, and sometimes the biggest breakthroughs come from the most unexpected places.
That's for sure.
And it reminds us to be curious, to ask questions, but also to think critically. Don't just believe everything you hear.
Good advice.
We don't know what the future holds, but we all have a role to play in shaping it. So let's be thoughtful about how we use new technologies and make sure they benefit everyone.
Well said.
To everyone listening, keep exploring, keep asking questions, and who knows, maybe you'll make the next big discovery. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.